Hello and welcome to the Game Lore Archives. My name's Dan.
And I'm Joe.
And welcome to another episode of Sea of Thieves lore. If you've been following this season, you will have noticed that many of the stories include a crew led by someone called Captain Ramsey, and you're probably going to hear him mentioned a lot in this series. His crew plays such an integral role to almost everything you find in the Sea of Thieves. So I thought it would now be a good time to discuss his crew's story. So before we start, this will ruin the book Athena's Fortune, or at least half of it. And I actually thought it was a really good read, so if you're planning to read it, don't let us ruin it for you. Just subscribe and leave the video. Now obviously we can't fit an entire book's worth of information into an episode, else we'd just do audiobooks. So this will just be a very quick overview of Captain Ramsey's crew and their story. All of the emotional stuff and the lore has been taken out. The lore is available in our other videos and the emotional impact will be butchered forever.
So first let's meet the members of Ramsey's ship, starting of course with its captain. Ramsey Singh is a well-known pirate who sails near the unpassable Devil's Shroud. He has a wife named Athena and two children called Demarcio and DeMarco.
Because it's actually said in the trailer,
so you can't get it wrong.
Yeah,
okay,
it's DeMarco.
It's DeMarco. And Lesedi,
I think.
Lesedi.
I think that one's not said.
Okay. So it's up to us, guys. However, due to the nature of his work, he rarely sees them. He always wears a signature black diamond wedding ring to symbolise his love for his wife. One of his closest childhood friends named Rowena owns a tavern on an island that's situated near the Devil's Shroud. Ramsey's goal was to make enough money so he could quit his life of piracy and settle down with his family. And one day the chance of getting rich fell into his lap when he met with a young scientist named Mercia. She believed that she'd found a way through the Devil's Shroud. Mercia is a smart woman, however the fact that she is a woman means that many of the pirates distrust her theory or refuse to let her sail with them as it's considered bad luck. Ramsey listens to her idea, and while he doesn't fully understand it, he agrees to give it a whirl and allows Mercia to join him on the voyage.
Part of Mercia's logic into getting through to the Devil's Shroud is the need for a smaller ship than pirates are typically used to, saying he needs to get a ship that can be sailed with 4 people or less. So he commissions the vessel to be built, naming it the Magpie's Wing. As it's built, Ramsey goes to hunt for 2 more crew members, until he finds Shan and Rathbone. Rathbone is hired as Ramsey's first mate, so stands to take over the ship if anything happens to Ramsey, or when he retires to spend time with his family. Shan is recommended to Ramsey by Rowena. He is an older pirate who is hired to be quartermaster. He is an amateur inventor and a genius with numbers, so it's his job to ration the beer, food and bullets, and calculate when the crew need to return from their voyage.
Beer? Do you not mean rum?
Rum, beer, kind of all in it. Rathbone immediately agrees to be part of the voyage as he is ambitious to be a captain. Shan is more careful and only agrees once he's heard Mercia's explanation of how to get through the Shroud for himself. However, eventually everyone's on board and gets into the newly constructed ship, and using Mercia's findings, manages to become the first crew to navigate the Shroud, making them the first people to enter this area of the sea for many, many years. Mercia hid being a woman for this first leg of the journey, not wanting the 2 newest members to walk away due to the rumours of women causing bad luck. However, she reveals the secret to the crewmates as soon as they're through the Shroud. Shan's not really bothered, but Rathbone is furious, until he is eventually calmed down with the promise of all the treasure they can now get thanks to her.
As soon as the Magpie's Wing is through the Shroud, the crew are thrown into a huge storm. Navigation is near impossible, so the crew battles the chaotic ocean until they find cover on one of the first islands they come across, which is a large cave big enough to shelter their entire ship. They camp overnight, and when the storm calms, they notice that the stars are completely different from what they were at home. A mind-blowing thing, impossible to happen, but they didn't let it deter them now that they've come so far. So this night marks the start of a month-long voyage into this new magical place. In that month they fill Magpie's Wing to the brim with gold and finery, free to explore without other people getting in their way. They explore far and wide, creating a small map to make sure future voyages are easier, until eventually supplies ran low and the ship couldn't physically carry any more treasure, which forced the crew to return home and sell everything that they had accumulated thus far.
When the crew had left, Ramsey hadn't been quiet about what they were attempting, a voyage that so many had failed before. Many people thought they would fail, so when their ship had seen returning, a huge crowd of onlookers started to gather on the pier. And while this fame is nice, it also makes it impossible to unload and sell their loot safely. So Ramsey clears the way by shooting above the crowd's head, saying he will tell the entire story at Rowena's tavern that evening, but until then, if anyone's seen near the boat, they'll be shot on sight, and the boat will not be left unguarded. The tone of his voice tells the crowd he is serious, and they soon disperse, and the crew manage to empty out the ship's treasures by trading in everything they have found and purchasing the best weapons, supplies that money can buy. Then, when they're prepared for the next voyage, the crew split up to enjoy their newfound wealth. As the crew enjoys themselves, Ramsey heads to the tavern to speak to Rowena.
Rowena is of course pleased to see him, but immediately calls him up on not visiting his wife. When Ramsey starts to stammer, she tells him that she is left with the kids to visit the family. This upsets Ramsey, but doesn't seem to shock him. He is a pirate at heart after all, and his main focus at the moment is returning to find more treasure now his crew is resupplied, and deep down he knows that however much he loves his family, he knows there's a chance he may never see them again. Unfortunately for the crew, he isn't the only one who seems to have realised that this is a possibility. Rathbone also realises that Ramsey may lose his family, and while he doesn't care for the sad family side of it, it does worry him that he may not inherit the crew until much later down the line, a prospect he's not entirely happy about. As the crew wander and Ramsey spends time with his friend, the inn slowly fills up around them until it's packed with people wanting to know the story of Ramsey's voyage. Ramsey is a great storyteller, and soon everyone is wrapped up in his stories. The only thing he doesn't actually share is how the others can get into the magical place. Nobody seems to mind this until a man named Stitcher Jim accuses him of lying, saying he probably found a sunken ruin full of treasure and is making the story up before storming out and walking home. On his way home, however, he runs into Rathbone. Rathbone believes that this new place of seemingly infinite treasure should be shared, so agrees to copy a map for Jim in exchange for his loyalty when needed, even hinting to Jim that he can make a lot of money by selling his own copies of the map and selling them.
Ramsey and his crew continue to plunder the sea for the next year. However, with word of Stitcher Jim's maps start to spread, and new pirates start appearing on the once barren seas. The sheer amount of loot to be had starts drawing pirates from miles around, until the name Sea of Thieves was coined and stuck. Mercia always suspected it was Rathbone who leaked the map, although with no evidence, nothing could be done, and abandoning the crew couldn't stop more pirates coming into the sea now. Ramsey isn't too happy with the new competition, but it hardens his resolve. If he can't be the only pirate in the Sea of Thieves, he'll be the best and most infamous one. He and his crew found a base on an island they call Thieves Haven, not wanting to be exposed by going to the newly founded outposts that were cropping up across the seas. Things are going great until around a year after the initial voyage, when Thieves Haven is looted and they lose everything they gained and hadn't yet sold. This lot hits the crew hard, but none more so than Ramsey himself.
The loss of a year's worth of piracy leaves Ramsey feeling like he'd wasted the last year. He's found a new place where magic is clearly alive, and him, along with the rest of the pirates who have entered the sea, have ignored this magic and just sailed around getting stuff. He speaks about his feelings at length with Mercia, along with all the magical things they've seen since sailing the Sea of Thieves, and together the pair decide to look into the magic. Mercia wants to understand the science behind the magic, whereas Ramsey wants to steal it for himself. They're unsure of how Shan and Rathbone will react to this new shift in focus, so decide to keep them in the dark.
Now, I'm going to mention this shift of focus later in this episode, so don't forget it.
So Ramsey begins to sail from outpost to outpost under the guise of finding their lost loot. He loudly interrogates people he believes might be the culprit, And as he does, Mercia uses the distraction to ask people about anything magical they've seen, and they continue to do this until Mercia talks to an elderly pirate who claims to have seen an elegant hallway underwater, lit by magical underwater flames. Ramsey takes his crew to coordinates, and without any explanation, him and Mercia dive underwater, leaving Rathbone and Shard to guard the ship.
As Mercia and Ramsey explore this underwater cavern, Mercia finds some pearl earrings and puts them on without a second thought. The second she does, a wailing she could faintly hear in the background becomes a chorus, and suddenly the merfolk reveal themselves to Ramsey and Mercia. The earrings are magical, created by an ancient race that used to inhabit the islands found on the Sea of Thieves, which allowed humans to communicate with the mer. Ramsey and Mercia were, of course, shocked with the revelation that mermaids are in fact real. So when the mer ask for their help in freeing their captives, they accept without really thinking on it. As all of this happens, back on the ship, Rathbone is furious. He is sick of Mercia's and secret meeting and rushing to random outposts. He can't work out what they're doing, but he knows it has nothing to do with the stolen treasure. And while Sean agrees that it has nothing to do with the treasure, he's a lot calmer and rational about it, whereas Rathbone is only thinking about the treasure he's missing out on. As Rathbone gets angrier and drinks more, he eventually falls into a drunken slumber. Hours later, Mercia and Ramsey finally return to the boat. Sean explains Rathbone's range, and Mercia promises to explain everything soon, but knows that she won't be believed without proof. So Sean agrees to trust her for a little longer while Rathbone seethes below deck.
The crew set sail for the coordinates of the captured mer while Sean talks Rathbone down. They eventually approach an island a large group of pirates are using as a base. Moored to the island are their trio of galleons. Mercia and Ramsey sneak into the galleons and start a huge fire, drawing the pirates from the island. As this happens, Sean and Rathbone sneak onto the island and see two captured mer for themselves. The captain of this huge group of pirates is standing guard and clearly cursed, with his bones turning to gold. This causes him to be slow but incredibly strong, and Sean and Rathbone try to fight him, but their swords snap against his golden bones. They eventually manage to free the mer and collapse the cave around them. They jumped into the river the mer were held in and they swim away. The captain's too heavy to be dragged by the current and therefore is trapped under the fallen rocks.
The crew regroups on Magpie's Wing and sets sail away from the island. As they sail, their ship is surrounded with hundreds of mer, wanting to lead them to their prize for freeing the captives. As Ramsey takes the wheel, Mercia finally tells Rathbone and Sean the entire story, how Ramsey changed his goal to focus on magic and how it led them to the merfolk. Sean is excited, seeing the mer as an opportunity that could offer a lot more than gold. Rathbone, however, is unimpressed and would rather the crew had focused on getting money. As they talk, the mer leads Magpie's Wing to the body of Old Mother,
a large kraken we discussed in the last episode, who was captured in huge magical chains.
With the mer's help, they take the chains and transport them to their home on Thieves Haven. Once home, Ramsey, Sean and Mercia work together to create magical chests which can't be broken and are hard to steal thanks to curses placed upon them. Then they use the remaining iron to create a magical set of keys. Once they've finished their work, Ramsey calls upon all the pirates in the Sea of Thieves to parley on the Golden Sands outpost.
Ramsey meets with the rest of the pirates and begins talking to them, saying that if they let greed consume them, they will always prey on one another instead of reveling in glory and riches, which would be so much greater if they worked together. He wants to achieve greatness by imposing one rule across the Sea of Thieves, that they enter a union together and don't steal each other's loot. He shows them the impossible to open chests and explains how they work. His idea is met with a mixed response. The whole idea of a union goes against the very nature of piracy itself, and Ramsey gives them time to choose, but as the various pirates return to their ships, a young kraken attacks, having tracked Ramsey since taking the chains wrapped around Old Mother.
The various ships in the area work together to battle the kraken, however the Magpie's Wing doesn't fare too well. Mercia and Sean are knocked overboard. They are luckily dragged back to Golden Sands by the merfolk, leaving Rathbone and Ramsey on the ship. Rathbone takes the wheel and Ramsey begins to pepper the Kraken in cannon fire. Ramsey manages to hit the beast in the eye, but it isn't enough to stop it. The Kraken begins to flee, but manages to break Ramsey's leg and drag him to the side of the boat, leaving him dangling. Rathbone appears, leaning down to help Ramsey, but instead of saving him, chooses to take his black diamond wedding ring from his finger. Rathbone mocks Ramsey, saying that this is what his alliance has brought him: death, a broken ship, a missing crew, and no gold. Rathbone says as pirates nothing should matter but gold. He then admits that he gave the map to the other people, and he was behind the theft of Thieves' Haven. And this is a little bit of a plot hole in the book, going back to what I told you to remember, the shift in focus. Rathbone says he stole from Thieves' Haven as everyone was so preoccupied with magic, mermaids and inventions that no one noticed him vanish for nights at a time as he stole it all from under their noses. However, Ramsey only got the idea to steal magic after Thieves' Haven had been stolen. So I don't really know what to say there. There is a plot hole. It's not on us. That's not our problem.
So Rathbone's motivation for stealing the gold was
caused by him stealing the gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
How
a little bit of an oversight there by the publisher. Still a really good book, but there is a plot hole, and I didn't want to just ignore it in case you come back on me and go, that doesn't make sense, because I know. But regardless of why Rathbone actually decided to steal the crew, with this admission of guilt, he grabs the magical keys to every chest from around Ramsey's neck and kicks his once captain overboard.
Now, we'll discuss how Rathbone's story ends in detail across the next couple of episodes, so I'll only go through this bit briefly. Rathbone returns to Golden Sands and tells Mercia and Shan he did everything he could to save Ramsey. Everyone else may believe him, but his old crew members are skeptical. Rathbone leaves his suspicious crew and leaves the Sea of Thieves, using the loot he stole from Thieves' Haven to pay off his bounties and found the Gold Hoarders Merchant Guild. Over the years, this guild makes him incredibly wealthy, but his lust for gold is never ending. So when he hears of a huge stockpile of gold that's been found, he can't resist making a final return trip to the Sea of Thieves on his own. However, this gold would lead him to becoming the very first skeletal lord. Much to his disgust, in his last moments, Rathbone is told Ramsey is very much alive. In fact, working together to fight the Kraken off had kind of proven his point that a pirate union had started, with Ramsey at its head. Whereas Rathbone had become the first skeletal lord, Ramsey had become the first pirate lord, and only stopped when he no longer sailed with his friends, but just other pirates. He figures it's not worth being a pirate unless you sail with your friends and can share a pint with them after your adventures. So, once he was rich, he sailed his new boat, called Athena's Fortune, into a hidden cave, setting up a tavern that only other legends could access. And his ghost haunts this location to this very day. And that concludes Ramsey and his crew's story. So we do hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to find out when the next episode is, where we'll discuss the different merchants' guilds. So thanks very much for watching.